that's why everything was coming through very overmodulated. So it would sound like.
But that could be just me. Feels a little stuffy. No movement of air. The church last night. They said unless it's 72 degrees outside.
silent disco. You can tell how old I am.
I have it.
I didn't know that was a thing. Huh. AirPods, whatever they are. See, that's how uncool I am. Just saying. Instead of AirPods. Sorry. Sorry. Should I sit back there until
Melissa's okay, sitting there. She's good to get up.
I don't mind moving? I think Megan sent my.
Public hearing. You gotta-
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our May 13th, 2025 City Council Work Session. The city manager will now go over the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. Good afternoon on this rainy day.
Yes, sir.
We have with us an opportunity. We have Melissa Lucy, who's CEO of Horizon Behavioral Health. She's here to engage you on the annual report. For Mrs. Timmer and our Vice Mayor, this happens each year, and we partner through actual participation. Mr. Feraldi sits on the board. We have a partnership with them about a resource that I think she'll give you an update about, so very exciting there. Then we have what's a performative piece, but a piece nevertheless that's required by legal. We will have our city clerk, our city attorney, and our mayor walk you through the bids for Rosedale encroachment franchise and also the Hillcats franchise. So needless to say, I don't think they'll be playing tonight later, so if anybody's trying to make it to the ball game, it might be rained out. So then also, as a follow-up on to a most recent work session, there were questions posed by city council, and staff was then staffed with certain expectations on how to answer those. So we have some opportunities for the work session here with Donna and with Greg. Under business item briefings, those are those briefings that I come to you, engage you about ahead of time, so that when you're called upon to vote upon them, you will have been briefed on those and are prepared to make a vote. So we have at least 2 of those. And also roll call, and then also closed session. I will take this opportunity, Mayor, before, if it's okay with you, we bring Chairman-Exec Lucy to the table. I wanted to acknowledge that this past Sunday was Mother's Day, and I wish all the mothers here and watching a happy Mother's Day. I know that that was a nice event. We also had several graduations, which makes any city manager very happy. I know that makes college presidents, but also city managers as far as sales, meals, lodging, heads and beds, and what have you. And I know that we had some actual graduates here at the table. I think Mrs. Reed. I think we had one of your children who graduated from Liberty, and then Dr. Wilder, one of your children that graduated from VCU. Do I have that right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so congratulations to those. If I've missed anybody, I myself have one graduating further away this coming weekend, but very, very excited about it, and she's worked real hard, and so we're excited there. So, and then I started with it was a kind of acknowledgement, but I did send some communications to council today about the heavy rain. City staff is on top of it. We've seen some of our newer developments who have maybe the resources necessary to meet that rate of rain and also capture it and be able to kind of marshal it. I know that several of you have sent some requests for us to look at certain properties, and I know that through community development and also Tom Martin that's happening. So we see it that's happening out and through until tomorrow. We're paying attention to it. And so I just want to give kudos to all of our public safety and our public works folks who are trying to make sure that we can measure that. I think we sent some notifications about certain roads that were impassable and blocked. And so understanding that the rain is there and that's something we have to work with, and to the degree that we can be safe, we ask everyone to be safe. So maybe with that, I turn it back to you, and if you'd like,
Thank
we
you,
can
sir.
welcome CEO Melissa Lucy.
Welcome, Ms. Lucy.
Thank you. So first, I would like to thank you for allowing me to present today and tell you a little bit about Horizon. And I want to also thank you for our continued partnership. This past fiscal year, Horizon celebrated our 55th anniversary of services. And the continued support and trust you have placed in us to meet our community's behavioral health needs is an honor and a responsibility I do not take lightly, so thank you. In front of you, there's packets with all of the information as well, so if later you're looking through it and you have questions, then please feel free to reach out to me. It's been an honor to have been with Horizon for the past 25-plus years, to see our mission and vision has endured and persevered across nearly 3 decades, growing to what it is today, a truly integrated, personalized, and collaborative system of care. On the next slide, thank you. So on this slide, you will see all our portfolio of services. The thing that I would like to point out is that each portfolio has a number of other services throughout that portfolio. So for example, our emergency services has forensics, women's recovery, and many more. On the next slide, you'll see our evidence-based programs. In addition to our previously offered evidence-based programming, we have a new program, the In-Depth Tobacco Cessation Education Program, developed by the American Lung Association, and it is offered to students served by Horizon's TREE grant. The program folds tobacco cessation education into a new program that was launched to serve adolescents with substance use treatment needs. In addition, this fiscal year, Horizon represented our community at the international level, having presented on the outcomes of our evidence-based illness management and recovery program at the World Conference on Qualitative Research. This was quite an honor for Horizon as well as for the community. Next slide, please. With both local and state level support, Horizon launched 2 new services that will have a direct impact on hospital readmissions. According to the latest research, those programs include Horizon's co-responder and mobile response teams. Both community-based initiatives aim to aid individuals experiencing a mental health emergency. The thing that I will point out here is that these programs actually decrease hospitalizations, keeping individuals into our community and keeping them safe. There are also programs that keep the individuals from going into crisis, which our law enforcement officers then have to respond to. Next slide, please. Governor Glenn Youngkin's 3-year comprehensive plan, Right Help Right Now, celebrated its 2-year anniversary in 2024, highlighting achievements in transforming Virginia's behavioral health system with its 6-pillared approach to address behavioral health challenges and strengthen services across the Commonwealth. As the initiative approaches its final year, Horizon remains focused on delivering comprehensive, sustainable behavioral health care to ensure every Virginian has access to the right help at the right time. On the next slide, you will see a quote from an individual that we serve. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read the quote, but I do encourage you to go back. These quotes come from individuals in the Lynchburg community and what they're having to say about the services that they're receiving. On the next slide, Horizon continues to offer telehealth appointments to accommodate client preferences using virtual meeting technology, removing major barriers to access for many clients. And to note, Horizon's total client count has increased since last fiscal year, and we have seen a rise in the number of clients now coming back into the office to receive services. In-person appointments in FY 2023 was 61,802, and in FY 2024 it was 70,279. On the next slide, Horizon's intermediate care facilities, otherwise known as Horizon Homes, facilitated 1,851 community events and trips, enriching the lives of our residents who look to us to provide daily, comprehensive, high-quality care. This is very important because in many cases, these individuals would otherwise not have outings into the community. On the next slide, In addition to the stats on the slide, Horizon saw 1,032 individuals for crisis intervention, 2,134 individuals for emergency services, and on average completed 138 adult pre-screenings monthly for a total of 1,659 adult pre-screenings completed in FY 2024. So as you can see, our crisis team and emergency services is very busy. You'll notice all of these are community-based programs demonstrating our alignment with the latest best practices to promote access, engagement, and alignment with the Right Help Right Now plan. I want to point out we connected 27 individuals with severe mental illness to permanent supportive housing. These are situations where the individual would otherwise not have permanent supportive housing. They could be couch surfing, they could be homeless, they could be anywhere, but now we provide them with housing. We pay for their rent ongoing. This does not end unless they somehow become sustainable, get back on their feet, which obviously is our goal to help them do, and then could do things on their own. Prevention had a total of 12,211 face-to-face contacts in FY '24. We facilitated 31 community presentations. Thank you. Next slide. We facilitated 31 community presentations, attended 33 community tabling events, trained 42 people in ASSIST, which is applied suicide intervention skills, 31 people in Safe Talk, which is suicide alertness for everyone, 151 people in mental health first aid, and this is our 14th consecutive year of offering Too Good for Drugs curriculum in the Lynchburg City High Schools. The Hype Club, Heroic, Young, Powerful, Energized, exists as a local youth coalition supported by Horizon Behavioral Health and the Central Virginia Addiction and Recovery Resources Coalition, also known as CVAR, to lead their peers in education and awareness of the dangers of substance use. The Hype Club is made up of high school students from EC Glass and Heritage High School. In February of 2024, Horizon was awarded the Youth Tobacco Use Prevention Grant in the amount of $158,226 to further engage local youth in the education of substance use and support youth development over the next 3 years. Funded by the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth, the funding will support local efforts to empower Virginia's youth to make healthy choices by reducing and preventing youth tobacco and nicotine use, substance use, and developing positive decision-making skills. The 3-year grant will support and continue provisions of high school-based curriculum, Too Good for Drugs, as well as support a leadership opportunity for students and the student-led prevention activities. Care coordination is especially useful when students require extra support during the school year. The care coordinator's role is to provide that support, link the family and client to needed services, whether it be Horizon or out in the community, and then assist the family in obtaining those services. It is a short-term service with the goal of student-family engagement. We have served 328 students in the Lynchburg City Schools in this program. And that was since August. That would be important for y'all to know. On the next slide, I want to point out the figure in the color block is the allotted monthly amount for each uninsured individual served. And keep in mind, we provide a lot more services than paid for because 1 month of case management would cost $367 by itself. And each individual also received our doctor and therapy services in many cases, and in some cases, a lot more services than just that. So you're getting that all for the sum of $165.23 a month. The Project Link program provides intensive outreach, case management, home visitation, and support services to pregnant and parenting women who are at risk or are diagnosed with substance use disorders. We have received 246 referrals from our local birthing hospital for substance-exposed infants, and we check up on every single case that we get referred. Of women who gave birth while enrolled in Horizon's Project Link program, 6 babies were born this year substance-free. This is remarkable, and this means that both the mother and baby's lives were profoundly impacted by these services, and our teams are succeeding at connecting with women prior to birth to prevent negative health outcomes of mother and baby early. On this, go back one. On this slide, this is our annual event through our Project Link. Clients at Horizon attend a Muffins with Moms event. We started this 2 years ago. We're going to continue it every year. We do have a release for everyone in the picture also, and this is a quote from them. The Lynchburg Behavioral Health Docket is designed for individuals with serious mental illness who are involved in the legal system to provide wraparound treatment for mental illness, promote recovery, avoid further legal involvement, and lead healthy and productive lives in their community. We were recently awarded a grant for $100,200 in state funds by the Supreme Court of Virginia to support the expansion of the Lynchburg Behavioral Health Docket. Within just the first 6 months of implementation, the program exceeded its goals to serve 6 individuals in 1 year, and the program has also celebrated its first program graduate prior to the year 1 of implementation. The docket's significant and rapid adoption and growth is a testament to the outstanding need to integrate behavioral health treatment as an alternative to incarceration. On the next slide, this is a quote from a Lynchburg stakeholder. Again, in the interest of time, I won't read it, but I do encourage you to go back and read their quotes because it gives you insight to what's going on in the community from the stakeholders' perspective. Horizon was awarded a $2 million federal grant by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, also known as SAMHSA. The awarded funds will be used to increase the capacity of the Lynchburg Adult Recovery Court by adding a probation officer to supervise participants, funding for recovery housing, and a robust external evaluation. The program has been operating at full capacity to meet community needs, but this new funding will allow the program to now serve 20 individuals per year for the next 5 years. On the next slide, on this slide. This is a quote from one of our graduates. Next slide. Our community partners have shared that this program has been instrumental in addressing the increasing use of vaping on school property. Of the 44 required 3-month follow-ups, 41 were completed, achieving a follow-up rate of 93.2%, far exceeding the 61% average for discretionary grants. Similarly, the 6-month follow-up rate of 85.2% surpasses the grant requirement and the discretionary grant average of 45.3%. Mobile Response Team, MRTs, in Virginia are a crucial component of the Marcus Alert System, which is designed to improve responses to mental health crises. The integration of MRTs within the Marcus Alert framework is part of an effort to create a more comprehensive, regionally based, and accessible mental health response system. We achieved 1-year implementation benchmarks, began responding to calls in the summer of 2024. On the horizon, which is probably what everybody's eager to hear about, the Crisis Receiving Center. So the Crisis Receiving Center renovations have started and are on target. Following completion, Horizon will proceed with building and clinical licensure requirements to get everybody in the building licensed as well as the building and the services licensed. The center will provide multiple treatment options for individuals experiencing a mental health crisis, including those that are placed under an emergency custody order or a temporary detention order. This array of services will support timely placement and treatment services, keeping clients closer to their support networks and offering more options for immediate treatment, all shown to improve long-term recovery and health outcomes of individuals served. Services offered will include walk-in mental health evaluations, 23-hour observations, residential crisis stabilization, and detox services, to name a few. And as all of you are aware, it will also decrease law enforcement involvement because we will have law enforcement officers there that are being paid from us to be there and to sit with the TDOs and emergency custody orders, temporary detention orders, emergency custody orders. Any questions?
Ms. Timler?
I don't have any questions per se. I just am very excited about the mobile response team and the receiving center. So thank you for all your work on that. I know that's a huge undertaking, and it's very needed with our law enforcement and being able to free them up. So thank you.
Of
That's very
course.
exciting.
Of course.
Mr. Wilder?
Again, thank you for the report. It's very informational. We appreciate it. Just love the partnerships with the court service unit, the court, I think the for recovery, I believe, and it seems those, the behavior one, those are such needed resource in our community. So really appreciate the work you're doing and partner with some of the other agencies as well to make it work better for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Deemer?
I just want to thank you for being a good neighbor. I live pretty close to some of your facilities and some of the things that are being constructed as well. And not only does one of my neighbors work for you, but I've watched the organization grow over there for years, and I know the good work that you do. And there's a lot of stigma around. I think it's diminishing, and I'm really excited about that. I think there's a real problem with screens and cell phones and child use that I'm glad there's some focus on. So I think that's great, and I just want to thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you all for your partnership and for your partnership with the Crisis Receiving Center. I think it's going to be great. And I'd like to thank Chris for being on our board and being such a wonderful partner. So thank you all.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. May not trip over the chair.
Item number 2, Rosedale encroachment franchise bid review. Call and acceptance. Ms. Finney.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As a result of an advertisement placed in the News in Advance on April 23rd and scanned on 29th, one bid was received on May 8th by Rosedale Investments LLC, Rosedale Owners Association, Inc., and Thomas P. Bell. If it's okay with you, I'll go ahead and read the bid.
Yes, ma'am. Please read the bill.
I have a letter of commitment
Bid.
saying, please accept this letter of commitment on behalf of Rosedale Investments LLC, on behalf of Rosedale Owners Association, and for Thomas P. Bell, as a bid being submitted pursuant to the invitation for bids and public hearing advertisement published in the News in Advance regarding the ordinance granting a franchise to Rosedale Investments LLC and Rosedale Owners Association to permit the use, work upon, maintenance, and/or removal of a plate arc encroaching into the public rights-of-way of the city at 1600 Grays Mill Road, Lynchburg, Virginia 24502. An original executed acceptance of franchise page of the proposed ordinance granting the franchise accompanies this letter of commitment, which it does.
Are there any other bids? There are no other bids? I declare the bidding closed. Is there a motion to accept the sole bid? Do I have a motion to accept this bid?
So moved.
Second. Cast your votes, please.
I have a question. I think there's going to be discussion.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, okay.
Sorry, the manager and I were having fun. What's a plate arch?
So the plate arch is a culvert, as I understand it, some type of stormwater facility, or it's essentially a concrete tube that's going under the property that's to be dedicated to the city as part of the subdivision process. It's a massive culvert in total that's going along, I think, Old Graves Mill Road is where it's located, but that's what plate arch references, and it's shown on that map that accompanies the documents in the agenda packet.
So I'll ask you this question, and if someone else needs to answer, that's fine. What will this do?
So there were some issues with the install of the culvert over at the Rosedale property. Because of those issues, there's certain liabilities the city is trying to avoid in connection with subdivision and the existence of the culvert on the property. And I'm glad to see Mr. Newland came in too. He might be able to correct me on this, but essentially what this does is it allows the city to subdivide the property, approve the subdivision, but not to take ownership of the culvert that's upon the city's property and the dedication of the roadways. This agreement sets out the terms of us, the city, allowing that portion of the culvert to remain in the right-of-way. And that's, in a nutshell, that's what it does.
So by subdividing what out?
So the Rosedale parcels that are over there need to be subdivided into separate parcels, one of which, from what I understand, that fronts Old Graves Mill Road, is to be either leased or sold to Wawa.
So what happens when we subdivide it out?
Lee, I
Any,
might-
any previous conditions we have on those properties that are now void?
Wait, tell me what you mean
Okay, so if it's all one lot right now,
Mm-hmm.
and they're subdivided out, does that then void any agreements that were made for the development? Or proffers, or does that change the nature of the development where they're able to do different things?
Oh, no, they very much want to subdivide the property to be able to.
Well, I know, I'm asking because I know they want to
Oh,
do it.
yeah.
Is there anything that they can
Not
do
that I'm,
differently?
not that I'm aware of unless Mr. Newland knows otherwise.
I'm just very skeptical, I'll be frank. We've had so many DEQ issues with this property that,
And
this
in
one
all,
caught my attention.
yeah, in all candor, Councilman Feraldi, that's the reason we're here in the fashion we are, is we're trying to avoid any environmental issues that they have ongoing with various government agencies concerning that culvert, the plate arch that's in the roadway.
Mr. Deemer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if this is related, but if anybody saw the video this morning after that deluge we got, it's definitely impacting Grays Mill Road again, and it was, this is not the first time. We're gonna have to clean some mud off of that road for sure. Is any of this gonna help that from continuing to happen, maybe? Or maybe that's a question not for the lawyer, but for the developer.
Sure. This culvert does not help that, no. This
Okay.
culvert is the stream that was originally through there, and it's a bottomless culvert that they had to put in so that they could, so the road could be expanded to be able to get a turn lane into the property.
Gotcha.
What's coming down is from the development further up the hill that has nothing to do with this.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm been looking at this plat that was included in our package, and there's supposed to be somewhere where it says plate arch on here, and I'm not seeing that. Is that just me? Am I missing it, or does anybody, because when you read the actual, when you read the,
Mr. Mischins,
yes, sir.
which one are you looking at?
I'm looking at the plat that was in our board portal, right?
Right.
And it says that, where did it say it in here? It actually said on here that it was identified as plate arch.
So I have it here, Councilman Mischins. If you look on what is sheet 3 of that subdivision plat,
All right, I didn't know there was 3 sheets. Now I know why I didn't see it.
there's, I think it's because the subdivision plat is in multiple pages. There's a
Gotcha.
shaded area, and over on the far right, where it goes into Rosedale Boulevard, and tell me if that rings a bell, Lee.
I'm looking at it far right,
Okay.
goes to Rosedale Boulevard.
Yeah,
Right.
and it should say plate arch right at the bottom in the corner, right off of Block A.
Looking at the wrong block, I think, Block A, shaded area, C note, Grays Mill Road. There it is. Okay, so, Mr. Newland,
Yes,
in order to kind of make this simple, did they bury a creek? Was that what happened?
yes,
Okay. Is the size of the plate arch, the bottomless culvert, so to speak, appropriate?
as far as I know from their engineering design, yes.
And I guess is this to make sure we don't take ownership of engineering and design that maybe we would have done something differently with if it was,
This is mainly for any issues that they might have with other state agencies.
so they own those issues down the road, we do not?
Correct.
That answers all my questions.
Ms. Timmer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really want to commend staff on this project. It came to PDC. I was not there, but I did go back and watch it, and I've read through the contract, and essentially this is what Mr. Mischins alluded to, where the developer did something inappropriately. This allows them to take ownership of that down the road in the sense that the EPA has concerns about the culvert. And because the EPA has those concerns, the developer will be responsible for whatever remediation has to occur with the EPA moving forward. That's why the franchise agreement is on the table. But what this will allow the city to do is then take back the right-of-way and some of the other aspects of the development that would naturally come to the city so that the city can move forward with other development that needs to take place in the area, specifically the Wawa. So that's my understanding of the agreement. I do have a couple questions just as I was going through the contract to make sure I understand some of the components of it, but I am in favor of the franchise and how that needs to take place for the development to continue to occur. I want to make sure that I'm understanding F on its page 6 of the contract. Thank you, Mr. Friedman, because I'm seeing that all throughout the contract, there are 3 parties that are responsible. Here, this would exchange some of who's responsible based on certain criteria being met. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding that transfer appropriately.
Yes, so as I understand it, what's to happen is, once the subdivision and everything is completed, there's going to be essentially a homeowners association that takes over the property. So what you're seeing here is ensuring, one, that there's someone always on the hook for maintaining the culvert and dealing with issues with the EPA or DEQ or whoever it is. But upon the resolution of all of the regulatory agency issues, they're essentially released, subject to the remaining terms and conditions of the franchise.
Okay, that is helpful. I just wanted to make sure I was tracking with that. 2 other quick questions. If there is remediation or redoing of the culvert that needs to take place, would that in any way potentially interfere with city traffic? Because I did not see any responsibility when it comes to possible interference with traffic or roadways. I just saw it specific to the culvert. And so I didn't know if they have to address the culvert, is that going to then overflow onto the city as far as responsibility with traffic flow or roadways?
So typically the way we handle these, I'm going to look for the appropriate section that speaks to that. But essentially what we do with these franchises is we always make their rights subordinate to the city's rights to be able to maintain the right-of-way.
Right.
So if they have the ability to work on the culvert, which of course they do because it's theirs, they'll still go through the appropriate permitting process. But if there is ever a conflict between, say, road work or traffic, the city's uses prevail. And if we have to close roads, they have to work through the city to be able to work that through. That any type of conflict I envision would be worked out in good faith between the parties.
Okay, so I'm trying to make sure I'm tracking with that one. If
Yeah.
they have to remove the culvert or redo the culvert, and I'm sorry, I haven't driven by the site, so I'm trying to picture this based on the map, and I should have gone by there. Is there potential of interference with city roads, and then how does that responsibility fall? I understand that there's gonna have to be
Yeah.
a communication or a conversation if that takes place, but,
It would be subject to Article 3.
okay,
Construction, work, and repair. So it says here, and I'll read it for our record, since everybody
yeah,
can
thank
hear
you,
it.
Matt.
Yeah. In the event any maintenance, work, repair, improvements, and/or changes are required on the encroachment, and such maintenance, work, repair, improvements, and/or changes materially interfere with the city's operations in any way, as determined in good faith by the city, then Rosedale and the ROA shall be solely responsible for the actual cost of such additional work that results from the interference.
Okay, I missed that. That's great.
That's fine.
Awesome. I'm glad that's there. Thank you. And then my last question is on page 11 under successors. And it's talking about the city manager's role with some of these decisions. And I'm not opposed to it. I'm just trying to understand the nature of the potential of transferring successors and what decisions would be made. And why specifically that would fall under the city manager to adjust the nature of the contract rather than council?
So it's typically done for simplicity. You know, there isn't any particular, you know, rhyme or reason for why we do the city manager, but just to make it easier in a process, say, pursuant to the city manager's contract power. It doesn't necessarily alter any of the terms or the actual term of the franchise, but authorizes, you know, the change of a corporation or the change of a person that
The
is
change
under-
of who's liable for the
No.
franchise?
So whoever, the liability
Yeah.
will always run with whoever takes over the property. So
Okay.
the thing is, if, let's say, someone buys all the rights to Rosedale, okay? And they don't go through an assignment, say they just go ahead and do it. Even if they don't do that, this successor language, once this, and this will be put in the land records, once it's in the land records, it binds everyone upon who may acquire the property or whatever
For the
may be.
time frame to these?
Yes.
Got it.
Through the
For
term
the
of the
39, yeah.
franchise. But usually what we do, because we don't permit automatic assignments, we have an administrative approval of who the new person
Got it.
is that has the assignment.
Okay, that's helpful. I was just trying to make sure that, you know, if someone's liable to this, has the liability of it, that it just can't be switched around without us being aware of how that's
And
occurring, so I appreciate that.
There should be some, let me see, this language here is probably what you're thinking of. The franchise and the rights and responsibilities of the same shall run with the title to the land and shall be binding upon and inure to the benefit of the franchisees, successor owners, and assigns of the franchisee's
Yep.
property.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really helpful for me. Again, I am in favor of this franchise. I think it's very helpful, and I appreciate your clarification of those.
Any more discussion? No? Please cast your vote. May I have a motion?
Oh, we have a motion and a second. So we're
Okay.
good to go. Councilmember Frialdi?
Yes.
Councilmember Mischins?
Yes.
Councilmember Reed?
Yes.
Councilmember Timmer?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deemer?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0. A public hearing will be held tonight at 7 PM to hear from members of the public regarding the adoption of an ordinance granting the franchise to the successful bidder.
Thank you. Item number 3, Hillcat franchise bid review, call and acceptance. Ms. Finney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, as a result of an advertisement placed in News in Advance on April 23rd and again on the 29th, one bid was received on May 9th by Hillcats LLC.
Please read the
Yes, sir.
bid, please.
I have a letter of commitment. It reads, "Please accept this letter of commitment on behalf of Hillcats Baseball LLC as a bid being submitted pursuant to the invitation for bids and public hearing advertisement published in the News in Advance regarding the ordinance granting Hillcats Baseball LLC an exclusive franchise to use the City of Lynchburg's Bank of the James Stadium at 3180 Fort Avenue for its baseball games, events, and related uses. An original executed acceptance of franchise page of the proposed ordinance granting the franchise and the Hillcats Baseball LLC acceptance page of the baseball stadium franchise agreement by and between the City of Lynchburg and Hillcats Baseball LLC dated April 1, 2025 accompanies this letter of commitment, and I confirm they do.
Yes, ma'am. Are there any more bids?
Not that I received, and I don't believe in the public.
I declare the bidding closed. Is there a motion to accept the sole bid?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
this is curiosity purely, but is there a clause in this contract or agreement with this franchise for the successor, kind of corresponding with Ms. Timmer's previous question? Is that covered in this franchise as well? I'm just curious.
So I want to say I always put it
Put
in
that
there.
in there?
But
Yeah.
let me double check just to reference a point.
I was looking for it in the table of contents. I didn't see anything obvious where it would have shown up. And it's 26 pages. So I couldn't find it quickly, but I'm just curious how the successor is dealt with the, in regards to the baseball team.
That may be the
assignability of the license where city council has to approve any assignment of the franchise to another organization?
That's kind of what I'm thinking too. I was seeing if there was anything, anything more specific, but what the deputy city manager is referring to is, it's, if you look under the assignability language, the city has to approve any assignments as it did with this particular assignment of a franchise. And even with the assignment, until there's a novation and a termination of the previous franchise, the former assigner is still on the hook for the franchise unless they're released. So if the equivalent language I hadn't mentioned, I wish I would have, I wish I would have had my computer. I'd search it. It's just such a big
Yeah,
document.
it's too big to find.
But that, I think, would cover it if they were to transfer it, because it would be a void transfer anyway unless we consented to it.
And council would be doing the consenting in this case?
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes.
Thank you.
And this one in particular, unless it's kind of an immaterial amendment, even amendments or a change in the term would come to council here.
Thank you.
Any more? Please cast your votes.
Councilmember Ferraldi? Councilmember Mischins?
Yes.
Councilmember Reed?
Yes.
Councilmember Timmer?
Yep.
Councilmember Ferraldi? Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deemer?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0. Again, a public hearing will be held tonight at 7 p.m. to hear from members of the public regarding adoption of an ordinance granting the franchise to the successful bidder.
Thank you. Item number 4, FY 2026 Budget Work Session. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, at the outset of this work session, I alluded to our most previous, and there were questions posed and some great conversation that happened, and what I've asked city staff, our deputy city manager, and our chief financial officers to help kind of shepherd that conversation, and that's what they'll do. With that, I'll turn it to Donna and to Greg.
Thank you. So, as an overview, the first few slides we're going to look at are things that we didn't get to in the last work session. And then we actually are trying to answer questions from the last work session and anything we have received since. So we've got quite the list there. So Greg's going to jump in first.
So first, and many of you will have seen these slides, but at our public hearing, the vice mayor made a very, I think, important comment, and that was 2 years ago, we lowered the real estate tax from $1.11 to 89 cents, and I think the term was the sky didn't fall. And that's absolutely the case, right? And we wanted to run through kind of the history of that reduction, and really why 2024 and 2026, where we are today, are not necessarily very similar. So we're going to start with 2024 and where we were. If we look, there we go, Mitch. If we look back to 2024, it's important to remember that while the tax rate was $1.11 in fiscal year 2023, the city manager proposed a tax rate of $1.05. So then reducing that tax rate from $1.05 to 89 cents, essentially it was a $12 million reduction in revenue, roughly. There are some adjustments made during that time period as we get more information. Obviously, the rehab program value changes when the real estate tax rate changes. We also had a reduction in the business license tax rates. We also identified some dedicated revenue, $600,000 for federal aid related to social services. And there was a technical adjustment, and you'll see this on the expenditure side too, as it related to the juvenile correction block grant revenue. So bottom line, even after all those adjustments, we land at roughly the exact same place, which was there was about $12 million in expenditure adjustments or in less revenue from $1.05 to 89 cents. So how did we make that up on the expenditure side? Next slide, please, Mitch. Well, first and foremost, if we look at these in terms of scale, in the city manager's proposed budget, there was $3 million in new revenue that was proposed to go to Lynchburg City Schools in our local contribution. During the period of time where council was debating the budget, we actually we found out we would receive more state revenue for Lynchburg City Schools. So as a result of that and other deliberations, the total amount of funding to Lynchburg City Schools from the proposed budget to the adopted budget was reduced by about $4.4 million. During that period of time, I think it's important to mention, we also went through a categorical funding a conversation, and money was moved from administration to instruction. So this isn't about, this isn't a judgment on any of, this is just purely the math, right? Next, and the next three items that are in red, I think are really important in that these are items that, and strategies that we used in fiscal year 2024 to close the budget gap. And essentially what this did is it added budget risk to the budget. We, first and foremost, we had ongoing revenue going into the budget for fleet replacement, vehicle replacement. We pulled all that ongoing revenue out and replaced it with one-time funding. We are still doing that today. We're funding those vehicle replacement with one-time funding. So that's not a strategy that we could use again. So that 2.6 million, that was a one-time strategy we could use. We used it, can't use it again. When we proposed the FY 2024 budget, we proposed it with full funding for staffing. And what that means is every position in the budget was allocated budget funds as though it would be filled throughout the entire budget year. We do that because it is in good revenue times, it's a way to make sure that there is, it's conservative budgeting, right? Well, one of the things we did at that point is we went ahead and assumed $2 million of vacancies would exist in the budget. And that was a pretty safe bet at that point in time. We had almost 30 vacancies in LPD. There were some vacancies in the fire department, vacancies across departments. That assumption for $2 million of vacancy savings is still assumed in the budget today. So again, this is something that a strategy that we used 2 years ago. It's still a strategy we are using today, so we can't do it again to generate savings. I'll say on top of that, we've seen a reduction in our vacancies in LPD. So hitting that $2 million mark, I think Donna gets more and more nervous over the last 2 fiscal years, and especially in this fiscal year, that we're going to be able to meet that $2 million target. We had also, in the proposed budget, had a debt service reserve. This was almost $1.4 million in ongoing funding. So we removed that debt service reserve. Again, we don't have a debt service reserve in the FY 2026 proposed budget. So that is, again, a strategy we can only use once. So what you see there is about $6 million in savings in budget strategies that we use that added budget risk to the budget, but these were things we were only able to do once. And once we did them, we can't do them again this year, right? So that is a big chunk of how we closed that budget gap. From there, you see we eliminated funding for new positions. We were able to work with Blue Ridge Regional Jail, got an update on our numbers there, our per diem numbers there that saw a reduction. This is the expenditure, this $247,000 is the expenditure side of that juvenile correction block grant technical adjustment we talked about. We eliminated funding for the Housing Trust Fund and again, some additional technical adjustments there, many of them in that $170,000. So again, that's how we ultimately closed that budget gap. Next slide, Mitch. But if you'll remember back to 2024, we were still able to do quite a few investments across the city. First, a 5% general wage increase for non-sworn employees, targeted public safety compression and progression. This really targeted the fire department as the police department was targeted in the previous budget. We added new police positions and for operational support, new public safety positions and operational support, new positions in our constitutional offices, 5 new positions for organizational capacity across the organization. And of course, we implemented a take-home car program. You can see, while they upfront, there was quite a bit of one-time cost, about $165,000 in ongoing cost there. So we were able to do quite a bit, even with a reduction in the real estate tax from $1.11 down to 89 cents. Next slide. So the obvious question is, hey, how are you able to do that? Well, this is it right here. At that point in time, we were still seeing substantial growth in our consumption tax revenue. So almost a little bit more than $6.5 million in 2024. If we look at today, that number has changed, and those consumption taxes are not growing like they were. So where we had more than $6.5 million in new revenue 2 years ago, we're looking at flat to negative consumption taxes now. So when you add up 2 things that are really important. Number one, we took budget actions that saved almost $6 million on the expenditure side that we're only able to do once. That's the funding vehicles with one-time funds instead of ongoing funds, assuming vacancy savings, and eliminating our debt service reserve. And the lack of consumption tax revenue that we are experiencing this year, that is a big difference between 2024 and today. So just some context there as we look forward. Next slide, please.
So when we look at the proposed real estate tax rate and the equalized rate, the value of a real property tax penny is $907,148. And if you're wondering why the budget document had 898,000-ish, it's a point in time. So Jeff continues with his assessments. He does the reviews, the Board of Equalization, all of that. So, but in order to get the budget document together, we have to stop at a point in time. So, and that changed from the advertised rate. So that's why the equalized rate is advertised at 76.7 with the current real property tax at 89 cents. The variance is 12.3 cents, and just the math is $11,157,918. So we were asked to look at what the equalized rate would mean. So we put this slide together that basically shows the pennies that cost for the things that are a change from the 25 adopted budget to the proposed 26. And also we had a question to break down the 3% for non-sworn and sworn. So the cost of 3% living adjustment for non-sworn, which is general employees, would be $1,692,525, and the public safety progression is $841,855. That's also in your budget document in the budget overview section on Roman numeral page 4. So when you look at this, the things that were added between 25 to 26 was the contractual and inflationary costs. So you would need 5.9 cents to cover those to maintain your current level of service. And then we went up for the cost of living for sworn and non-sworn would cost 2.8 cents. And then 3 cents would cover the 3% for Lynchburg City Schools employees based on the governor's budget, of which we still haven't seen the superintendent's latest memo now that the General Assembly has finished that. So we're continuing to look at that money. And then also about 0.6 cents for the expanded elderly and disabled tax relief. So that just kind of gives you the oversight for the equalized rate. We also had a question about how much federal funding is in the 26 proposed budget, and it's right at $38 million. So our general fund is 10.8 million, with the majority of that 10.8 million being from human services. And then we do have some, a little bit, this is kind of like SNAP match dollars that we do through Parks and Recreation so that people can buy fresh vegetables at the community market. We also have in our grant fund, which is our city, federal, state aid fund, about $2 million. You can see the various grants there. The detention fund, which is the USDA funds to feed kids, is about $50,000. And then our home fund and our CDBG funds are both 100% federal. And then in our city capital projects fund, we do have 2 projects with federal funding, being the Lynchburg Center for Industry Phase 2 and also our GLTC bus replacements. The airport fund, the capital fund, has about $4 million, and then Lynchburg City Schools is $11.2 million, which are mostly grants. And then also for GLTC, we've got about $5 million in their operating. So that covers our federal funds. And then we had a question about ambulance service fees. So we worked with our ambulance service provider, which does our billing. It's called EMS-MC, which is a little confusing when you're talking about EMS. But so they did a projection that if we went to 150% of the Medicare allowable rate, it would provide about $200,000 in increased revenue. And they based this on a projection using the calendar year 24 and the difference between what we actually collected and what we may have collected if charging the 150% of the Medicare allowable rate. The reason we outsource this billing is this is really complicated, so there's not an easy answer. But for Medicare allowable rate, if someone who has Medicare rides one of our ambulance based on the level of care that they are required, there is an allowable rate. But what Medicare actually pays for is 80% of that rate. The other 20% is billed either as private pay or if the person has a secondary insurance. If they have Medicaid in addition to their Medicare, you can't bill Medicaid over and above what they allow. So we have to write that off. So there's a lot of circumstances regarding how we collect that, how it's billed, what Medicare pays for, but we absolutely can go to 150% of the allowable rates, and you can see what those would be there in your far right column. So we absolutely can do that if that's what council wants to do, but we're projecting based on what our provider is telling us, it would result in about $200,000 of additional revenue.
Next, we had a good conversation about lodging tax at our last work session. So a little bit of information and background here to help frame up the conversation tonight. Recent history with lodging tax. So back in 2001, the city added the $1 per room per night lodging tax. And in 2018, the city council voted to increase the rate, the lodging tax rate, what we charge on the room rate, from 5.5% to 6.5%. We dug pretty deep into any case studies we could find, any academic studies we could find on the impact of increasing lodging tax. What we were able to find is that, generally speaking, from the academic articles and case studies, is that increases in lodging tax typically had very little impact on the hoteliers in the area. That being said, what we were not able to find is any increases as substantial as what we were talking about. So it's difficult to be able to offer much context around a fairly large increase. A couple of things that we would encourage council to consider is, a large increase in lodging tax may result in whatever the hotelier trade groups are, potentially going to the General Assembly and making the case that, hey, this is too hard on us financially. We can't let what Lynchburg is doing spread across the state. You need to put a cap potentially on these rates. The other side of that is one thing that we would need to pay attention to is if increased lodging tax rates led to either a reduction in your average room night cost or to your total number of room nights, that would negatively impact revenue. So we just have to be aware and prepared for that. But that being said, we saw nothing that would say, that would tell us, hey, this is a strategy that just should not be pursued, right? Basically, the academic text didn't have any case studies that would really clearly define what we're looking at here. And beyond that, the other two items are, concerns that we would run by council, but nothing that said, hey, this is not a path to take in any way. Next slide, please. So just for context, we branded the Virginia 15 a month or so ago. So we took a look at the Virginia 15 in terms of lodging and lodging tax rate and the lodging room tax or bed tax amount. What you'll see is the highest across the state is 9% on the lodging tax and $3 on the room rate. That being said, there's no cap in the code that says this is the max that you can potentially charge. Next slide. So we took a look at, I think Councilman Feraldi sent us an updated scenario after he had gone and crunched some numbers. That would be 12.5% on the lodging tax and $10 on the bed tax. What you'd be looking at there is a 6% increase on the lodging tax rate, a $9 increase on the bed tax. We also looked at this scenario in conjunction with equalization, right? So a 12.3 cent reduction to the real estate tax rate. And what we found is, in terms of revenue, the change from proposed was, it would create based on the level of expenses we needed to fund the full proposed expenditure budget, you're about $4 million, a little bit more than $4 million in the hole. At equalization, we did remove the proposed changes to the elderly and disabled tax relief program, and we adjusted for the additional ambulance service fee revenue. So our net change from proposed, when you take that into consideration, is still about a $3.5 million hole. Next slide. Councilman Feraldi then asked us what I thought was a really good question, and I got to tell you, Councilman Feraldi, I was very upset with myself that I hadn't thought to pursue this line of questioning or line of thought before you asked. But if you'll remember, 2 years ago, City Council adjusted the tax rate from $1.11 to 89 cents, which was actually almost 3.8 cents below the equalization rate. We went back and, based on the final land book, calculated that equalization rate at 92.8 cents. So the question from there was, what would be the equalization rate if we calculated that over the last two reassessment periods?
79.4.
It's 80.8, because you have to adjust for growth. Growth's not published.
I want to see how you got there.
Absolutely, we're good at
I got the
sharing math.
79.4, you got the 80.8, that's not that far off.
Right. So 80.8 cents. So next slide. So we took a look at Councilman Feraldi's lodging tax plan. We called this Modified Option 1, and ran that scenario with that 80.8 cent real estate tax rate. And what we found was, everything being equal, that net change from proposed was actually a positive, $267,000 roughly, about $250,000 to the good. We ran one more scenario just for council's consideration. Next slide. We called this Modified 2. One of the things we looked at here is if council was, uncomfortable with the lodging tax adjustments at what Councilman Feraldi had proposed, we took a look at what would it take if we did a 0.5% increase to meals tax, where would those lodging tax rates need to be in order to get us to, basically no net change or a small positive net change. And that would be a lodging tax rate of 11% and a bed tax of $7.50. Of course, all of this is calculated, the average room rate in the city of Lynchburg, based on the information we could find, was about $163 per night. Next slide.
And since we don't really know exactly what the impact of raising the lodging tax that much would be, like Greg mentioned, should the hotelers reduce their room rate, or it impacts the number of room per night, what we would recommend is from the unassigned general fund balance, taking $1 million and just setting it aside just in case that additional revenue from lodging tax did not materialize. So just to be, y'all don't know me like some other councils, but that is my conservative approach, just to make sure, since it would be something we've not done before and not understanding the full impact. So that would be my recommendation.
Next slide, Mitch.
And then just some takeaways. So a public hearing is required to raise any tax or make a city code change, I believe. That's kind of my in there, but I believe that that's true. So if we increase those ambulance fees rates, we would need a public hearing, as well as if council chose to do something with lodging and/or meals tax. It must be advertised, the public hearing must be advertised 7 days ahead of the public hearing. So the legal advertisement to do that in time for a public hearing on May 27th, I have to have it to the newspaper by 3 p.m. on Thursday. So just for guidance sake. And that's it.
That is everything we have to help council with their discussions on the budget.
Okay, thank you for that, that was great. So we would adopt the budget and then have the public hearing, or no?
No, you have to have the public hearing before you could adopt the budget. If you chose to propose to increase lodging, meals, ambulance, or any of the three.
So why do we have to wait till the 27th, if there's a 7-day requirement?
We have to, it has to be in the newspaper 7 days ahead of the public hearing.
The notice does.
So the notice does, the notice for the public hearing. So that, and it's required, if there's going to be a public hearing on the 27th, you gotta back it up 7 days to be in the paper. And then in order to put it in the paper, they require it by the 15th at 3
Okay,
p.m.
got it.
So making all those deadlines.
Anyone else? Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think all this stuff was good information, and I know that's probably hard to see from here, but I picked up the flash drive yesterday morning, and I went through everything, and I was able to compile all the departments together into one spreadsheet, which kind of shocks me that we don't have something that consolidates and adds all that together. But what I'm seeing here is, this is a good presentation. And if you accompany that with some spending cuts, because I think that we're proposing to spend too much on some things, like when I see a 809% increase in subscriptions at the tune of $391,000, apparel and protective wear increase of 128% at $264,000, safety supplies increase 107, these are what we actually spent in 2024. These are some massive increases. You know, what I'm demonstrating here is just looking at everything that at least doubled since what we spent in 2024, right, from what was provided. And that alone, the difference between what's proposed and what we spent in 2024 is $2.7 million. That's the operating budget increase for city schools. That's more than enough for stretchers and cardiac monitors for the fire department. That pays for our 3% general wage increase. That pays for the pay progression plan. So I'm a fan of what's been presented, but we also need to really look at the spending. I don't understand why, when I look through the notes on some of these things, keep it at the FY 2025 level. And the FY 2025 level is way higher than we actually spent in FY 24. You know, why do we need to go from spending less than $50,000 on subscriptions in 2024 to $439,000 in what I found in what was provided? And this is all departments. I was able to take all the descriptions, not the account number, but the account description for what it is. And when I look at some of these increases, I mean, we have a spending problem, and we need to get it under control. So I am in favor of what was presented here tonight to try to get that tax rate down. I think we still need to pursue the rate equalization of 76.7. But we need to take a deep look at how we're proposing to spend in all of our departments and really evaluate, is it necessary to spend on some of these things, like training and conferences? That was one that I saw. We spent $207,000 in 2024, and we're almost double to $384,000. You know, when we're proposing tax increases, that's not the time to double how much you're spending on training and conferences for employees. Legal services, we spent $67,444 in 2024, and then now we're proposing, and this looks to be contract, $192,000 in 2026. So, I mean, I've got a lot of questions about this information, about why we're proposing to spend so much in some of these things, and I'm looking specifically at non-personnel, non-benefits. We need to take a look at things and tighten our belt. I think that we can accomplish this. I know you guys can get it done, and we can still take care of our employees and our citizens at the same time.
Totally appreciate what you said, and I think everybody in every, avenue of life right now is trying to find ways to save money. With my new job, my husband has been doing a lot of the grocery shopping, because I've been getting in at 7 in the morning and sometimes getting home at 7 at night. I went to the grocery store for the first time in a while and bought a gallon of milk on Saturday. And the only thing I buy organic anymore, because that's expensive, is the milk. It was $8.07 for a gallon of organic milk. Just to put things in perspective, because we have way less children in our house now, and I thought we'd be saving money on groceries, and I feel like we're spending the same amount. So we should still be cutting corners everywhere we can, but inflation is a real deal, so I have no doubt that what we were spending as a city in 2024 and what we're spending now, we could be buying the same services and subscriptions, and the costs are just up. Because we're seeing it in our own homes. I don't know how some of our families in the city are able to do what they're doing, because of how crazy things cost. So yes, we should all be being, good stewards with the money that we are spending within the city, but it's a real deal. I mean, inflation is real. I remember last year we were talking about in the water department, what Mr. Mitchell was facing with the cost of chemicals and the inflationary costs he was dealing with there. I mean, it is what it is. So, while we can try to cut corners, we can't cause inflation to go down, so I just think we have to be mindful of that, things cost what they cost, and, we have to pay for the services that it costs to run the city with, so I just want to be mindful of all those things as we go into having to pay for what is necessary in this budget just to make the city run.
Mr. Wilder?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation to the staff. I just have a couple of concerns. I remember when we tried to increase the hotel rate and the food rate some time ago. I mean, the hotel industry came out in full force. They were really against that, so I would like to hear what they have to say, as well as the food tax. I can't remember if that was on the proposals or not, but anyway, but then the industry, the restaurants came out in full force as well in reference to increasing that rate. Like people in Camden County put up a sign, put up a sign saying the taxes here are lower than in Lynchburg, across the street. So they do things of that nature. So I'm concerned about any other taxes being raised. Inflation is real. Again, everything's going up. Like I mentioned it the last time, everything you get from is going to go up. It's just a part of life. If you think something's going to be the same as last year, it's just not going to happen. I appreciate the efforts of the city. I know we all want to save money, save resources. And at some point, you get to the point where you're cutting such bare bones where staff are affected, where mental health is affected, where you have staff stressed out because you're trying to save so much money, but you just can't adequately have enough staff to do what you need to do. So at some points, it's an effect where you may cut this fee, but you can have increased fee in health costs, increased fee in mental health costs, because there's so much pressure and stress on people trying to accommodate all these other cuts and work with less staff. So I have concerns about that, and then like certain training things. I mean, we're a licensed daycare facility. We have to do certain training in order to keep our requirements. So certain certifications have to do certain requirements. If you go to certain trainings, those trainings are not cheap. They're increased as well. So fees of those things. So all those things have added increased costs. Legal fees, we have several lawsuits we're dealing with. Have you seen the price of an attorney? So legal fees have increased well, and we have several lawsuits against the city that we have to continue to litigate for. Those fees are not cheap, and they have gone appeals and appeals, and the more you have to do legal fees, the higher the fees go. So we have situations that we as a city have to deal with because of the increased legal fees that continue to go forth in our city is litigated. So we talk about legal fees and other fees. Things are just going up. Again, I understand we want to all save funds. We want to save money. I understand that. But we got to be realistic. Things are going up. And I have faith in our city and trying to reduce the expenses as much as possible. And sometimes, I'm trying to say this in a nice way, but I'm just being honest. Sometimes we just don't trust our staff. We don't have faith in our staff, people that we hire to do certain jobs. It's like we always want to second guess them. And I'm sorry for that, but I guess that's the way I feel. We just don't trust our staff. People who won awards for the accounting program that we've done, who won awards for the, we have annual audits. Like one person said, we don't have audits. We have an annual audit that we go through for the schools and for the city, and we don't have faith in the auditors. At some points it gets a conspiracy theory that, oh my gosh, I don't trust anybody. So I'm just concerned about that, where we're going with these rabbit holes sometimes. But again, I do have faith in our school system, our city staff. And again, we got to make sure we're double checking these. I'm not saying just give them a pass, but again, I do have faith in the awards and the work. I'm like Donna and her team work continuously in making sure all these numbers. I was with the staff in PDC earlier today. All the levers for the senior staff they're doing to try to find grants here, like with transportation, trying to find state grants here and resources here, and trying to find other resources to supplement so it would be less burden on our taxpayers here locally, so they get state dollars and federal dollars. And that comes with seniority with our senior staff that we have to pull all these resources together with the police and fire department and finding other state grants or federal grants to supplement cost of this and cost of that. So I appreciate the staff. I went to a dedication of a fire truck the other day that took about 2 or 3 years to get here. The cost about close to $700,000. A new truck like that now be over $1 million. So again, that thing from 2 or 3 years ago, $700, today today about $1 million for a fire truck. Again, that price doesn't stay the same. We can't say, oh my gosh, we don't want to pay $700. We don't want to pay $1 million for this. We want to pay the price we paid 2 years ago. That's just not going to happen. I mean, I'm just being realistic. That's not going to happen. Thank you.
Modified one.
Three slides back.
The one without meals. So that one. Need feedback from council. I've tried to come up with ideas to get a discussion. Let's make some sausage. So I would appreciate feedback directly on this and related topics, if that's okay.
Can I make a comment? Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, thank you, appreciate it. Is there a scenario the city is more comfortable with? And I wish we could do more of a compromise, where right now the real estate rate is 86, 87, what is it? 89. Right now it's 89. I know some people are recommending it was a 78 or whatever. So whatever. Yes, so the way we can do a compromise and do a middle point, where we compromise a little bit more, where we're not raising the feed meals too much, or the lodging fee too much, where we're not turning people away. The lodging room rate, I think up to $9. Again, the highest was Virginia Beach, right?
Yeah.
That was like 7? 9.
Well, the lodging percentage was 9%.
Percentage, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the tax was
The
9%.
highest percentage is 9%.
Okay.
The highest dollar amount is
$3.
3%.
Okay. Yeah. But whatever. So again, if it's just not too much, to me, it'd be more of a compromise. We can't get to the 78 or whatever. We can't get to the equalization amount, but can we do a little bit more so it won't be so much affect so many other levers, like you said, levers. It won't affect so many other levers. We're affecting the restaurants. We're affecting the hotels, where everybody's in up arms. If we can just kind of find a medium point where it's not too much here, not too much there, but more of a medium point. Thank you.
Ms. Reed?
Did we try to go to 9% on lodging and go down on the fee? Since other cities are at 9%, but not as high as us on the fee. Did we try that? Because Charlottesville is at 9%, so, and we're a larger population size than Charlottesville, so I feel like, did you try that?
But their penny is worth more.
Oh,
on
okay.
real estate.
Okay, but did we
Yeah, so if
try
you
to
go
go higher?
To answer Dr. Wilder's
Doesn't matter.
question, staff's always comfortable not being an outlier, right? Which means always kind of staying within the mix of what is done around the state. Yes, we did look at going to 9% and $3, but quite frankly, the level of revenue it raises, even if you were to go to, even if you were to increase meals tax a whole percent, would require a real estate tax rate that's in the 83, 84 cent range to make that work.
So I'll just give my feedback. I feel like, I know we wanted to get to equalization. I feel like the compromise that's being looked for here is what's trying to be done, because what's on the proposed budget as far as schools, what we're looking at to do on kind of the operating side of things is wanted and important. We're still coming down off the rate a significant amount. I hate that we're having to remove the elderly and disabled tax relief, just because that's a big audience that we heard from, which were the people on fixed incomes, the ones that were being so much impacted by taxes and those who were struggling. So I hate that that's coming off, but I feel like this is a really good way to try to compromise without increasing a tax anywhere else, because this is a tourism kind of tax, and it's not hurting and affecting our people, our citizens, and we're trying to relieve the burden of our citizens. And so I think it's a really good way to try to compromise and give the city the revenue that's needed to run and operate, which is what we're trying to do, and make sure that all those needs are met, while also bringing things down to provide as much relief as possible. So I like the suggestion. I understand that it's going to your concerns, Dr. Wilder, potentially upset some in the hotel industry. Running through it over the last week or so, in my mind, adding $9 to kind of any room at this point in the city, as we've talked about, cost of everything going up. It is an increase, but at this point, hotels are a want, not a need. So we're not talking about food, we're not talking about, again, families and their needs to survive. It is usually, in most cases, a luxury. And so for the people using the service, and I understand with the hotel owners, it's different. But they are probably, the owners of the hotels at least, are seeing some benefit from the real estate tax going down. So there's a benefit to them from that side of things. So to your request, that's my opinion.
Just point of clarification. I'm here to listen right now. Point of clarification, though, is this is pretty darn close to the equalized rate over of a broader period of time.
Right.
When you're looking at markets, it's important to look at not just from one year to the next. Look at a broader period of time. And actually what that did is it created more of a plateauing effect of the real estate rate rather than even a sharp dip down and a sharp dip up. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about, if you're sharing the idea of compromising, just remember the fact is this is essentially, you're still in the same trajectory overall. It's not, because it's a longer period of time.
Right.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Ms. Trimmer was next.
Go ahead.
I'm reserving my comments right now. I'm just listening. Appreciate it.
Mr. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm reserving my comments too. I appreciate the efforts of this committee, everything, the compromise on the 80%, the attempt to find a tax that's less egregious. I truly do appreciate that. I have a question for staff. Given the water rate change and this new proposal on two different ways to tax the hotels, what is the total number of tax increases items that are potentially going up in this proposed budget and these discussions? Is there an actual number? How many that we're talking about?
Well, water rates, water, sewer, and stormwater
So that's three, right? They're all going up? Okay.
in the enterprise, yes, as an enterprise.
Because we gave them a break for a while and that's coming off, right?
That's different.
Oh.
So what you're seeing in water, stormwater, and sewer is just the rates for operations increasing. I think it's $2.99 a month, something like that.
I think it's $2.90.
$2.90 a month is what your average customer would see. The largest of that is in the sewer fund, which is over $2 and sort of required by our consent order. But yes, so that's three different fees. Then you would have potentially, lodging and the bed tax, which you make the argument whether local Lynchburg residents are paying that.
Sure.
And then I don't know that I want to weigh into real estate tax discussion there, difference between tax rate and tax. So I'm just going to leave that as
Some
it
people
is.
gonna pay more money on their real estate this year.
And then you've got,
I need an answer to that.
is that it?
Is anybody gonna pay more if we equalize the tax?
Because
Or
it's
some
an
people gonna pay
average
higher?
rate, because it's averaged, even if you equalize it, some people will pay more.
So I don't want you to weigh into it. I just want to understand the impact on citizens. So I will add that one in if you don't want to. Okay, some people will pay more. Is that
Is that it?
it? What about the trash? I know that's changing, or,
Well, that was a sunset, so
So
the
it's
$10 a month for trash, and then the decal fee on your vehicle, your motor vehicle license fee. That sunset as
what
well.
about property? Personal property, is that,
There's no.
that's not
no.
going up or anything? Okay.
The rate's
The
not going
rates
up
have changed.
and the,
The ratio.
Is the ratio going up?
I think were we at 100% last year?
No, you're never at 100% for
Or-
PPTRA.
No. For what, remember Mitch was ratioing it? for-
Oh, yeah, we're at 100%. But we were 100% in '25.
So I guess bottom line for the simple of us, some people paying more on personal property?
Well, it depends on the value of your vehicle, right? So if you bought a new car, you're definitely paying more. If you have the same vehicle you had last year, you're likely paying less unless you own
Some people
something that's
less, some
sort of,
people more.
yeah.
Okay. One more question. You said that you did some studies on the academic side of increasing rates, and you said there were some impacts that you saw, and then later you said it was a revenue impacts maybe. What were the actual impacts? Anything?
So it was difficult to look at academic and case studies because the largest increases that were studied were 2 to 3% increases overall. And what they found was, generally speaking, there was very little material impact. About the most we could say is, I think there was one study or case study that showed that between leisure travel and group travel would be impacted more simply because you've got conference planners who are paying a lot more attention to tax rates because they're buying a large block of rooms for a large number of days than leisure travel. Typically, leisure travel, folks are just, they're not paying a lot of attention to the tax rate unless they're traveling for leisure to the same place over and over and over again. About the only thing that we saw that was interesting and potentially applicable, but likely not directly, is that in California, I think there's no state sales tax on hotel nights, and all the localities are able to set their own rates. And in localities that had disparate rates, some of the mid-tier and lower hotels had lower Dun & Bradstreet scores than the same type of hotels in the neighboring jurisdictions with lower rates. Now, that's getting really deep into it,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
But that's what we found. Logically, what you could expect, most likely, is some impact on group travel, right?
If I may put in, Greg, on that point, though, even if you saw a 15% decrease because of an adoption of a policy like this, there's still 267,000 cushion, and that's still within the black. You have 20%, you're still in the black. So I'm sorry to cut you off,
Oh,
Greg,
no,
but
no.
just in the realm of talking the numbers, I mean, so.
I appreciate that, thank you. I wasn't quite finished, Mr. Mayor. My general thought is, it sounds like by my count, we got potentially at least 6 fees or taxes that are on the table that we're discussing. And I just want to have a clear-eyed picture of that's exactly what we've got to figure out, guys. And I don't know about y'all, but, I still remember going my door to door. It's pretty fresh. It was just in November. And folks were very clear that they just don't want us keep coming back to them continuously. Most people on an individual basis in their homes, you talk about the groceries, they don't have the ability to give themselves a raise to pay for $8, for a gallon of milk. We as a city, however, do have the ability to give ourselves a raise. But I don't want to forget where that raise comes from. It comes from our citizens. They are the ones that are impacted. They have mental health issues when they have to pay higher and higher and higher things as well. So it's not just our city staff that struggles to do more with less. It's our citizens, all 80,000 of them, that are impacted by these potential 6 taxes that we're looking at. And maybe I'm wrong on this, but I've looked at this budget proposal, and I've looked at the tax increases, and I've looked at the borrowing rates, and I have an MBA, but I don't need it to realize this appears to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, as potentially the largest spending budget in Lynchburg history. This appears to be the largest tax increase in Lynchburg history. If I'm wrong, I'd love to be corrected. And the largest amount of borrowing in Lynchburg history. So I know what I ran on, I know what I said. My goal, and I asked for 75 cents. So I've already compromised. If I say now I'll go for equalization, I have compromised from what I wanted. Because I told folks that I was going to do the best to say they pay this year and write that check out as they paid last year. And that's what I would try to do. And that's what I'm trying to do. And nobody's told me that's impossible. I understand we've got some savings. And can you put that back up again? I appreciate the work that you did to come up with this. I know nobody back there can read that. I gotcha. I'm right here and I can barely read it. But I can read line 1. Line 1, is this every increase, or is this just the biggest increase? Just please answer, yeah.
So this is just like the top, what I found, where it was at least more than double.
Thank you. So I'm looking at the very top thing, communications, inventory parts, 3,001% increase from 2024. I don't know anybody, even at the grocery store, I don't think anybody's had a 3,000. I would really hope the media looks at this. I appreciate you putting it together.
Now I got cleaner numbers now with more in it.
This looks, like some serious savings of $2,714,000 that we could be looking at. And I hope the city staff takes this seriously. I appreciate your effort to put it together,
Okay, Mr.
Councilman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so, just to be clear, 80.8 cents is a $4 million real estate tax increase on our citizens. That's what it is. Because it's 4.1 cents times you said 970,000 per penny?
907.
907, okay. So, hold on, I could change that real quick. 907. It's a $3.72 million real estate tax increase on our citizens. When I'm looking at, and I appreciate the conversations about inflation. So I looked it up, right? There's a number for that through the CPI. And since July of 23, we're looking at about 4.85%. We'll round that up to 4.9, right? So if you were to just add 4.9% to all these items that is in the flash drive that you guys prepared and delivered for us to pick up yesterday, that total about $16.9 million, $17 million, you'd be looking at about $835,000 more for these non-personnel items. I'm not talking about anything related to personnel. I'm looking at just non-personnel items, right? That's what 4.9% would look like. But instead, we have 44%, which is $7.5 million. And that's why I'm convinced when we're looking at a $3.7 million increase right here on the real estate by going above equalization, I'm convinced that the compromise needs to be cutting back on some of the spending. We need to go back and take a look at these things that are nothing related to personnel. Inflation would put us at about $832,000, right? We're sitting at $7.5 million. And we're looking at a $3.7 million tax increase on the real estate for our citizens, right? And it's, so what I have to say about that is, let's go back to the drawing board and take a look at some of these non-personnel items, tighten the belt a little bit, and figure out if we can make up the difference. I'm confident that you guys can do it. I don't have a doubt in my mind that you guys can do it. But when you're looking at, subscriptions, $48,286.36 is what was spent in 2024. And what's proposed is $439,160.
I can speak to that. We moved software maintenance into that line item this year from other places in the budget, and also the tech fund used to pay for a lot of the software maintenance, and we haven't had the funds in the tech fund to do that, so they've had to be moved back into the general fund in order to pay for software maintenance.
You
So
said
that's why that one line
software
item.
maintenance?
Software maintenance.
Software maintenance, actual spent in 2024, 578,026, 1.1 million.
Well, and that's because some of it was moved from the tech fund, so.
I think Ms. Donald knows how to do her job.
Not saying she doesn't know how to do her job. I'm asking questions. This is the information that was provided to me. I'm responsible to the taxpayers, Mr. Mayor. They pay the bills for all this stuff. When I see these things that I'm seeing that look like large increases in spending, and the fact that we've been asking for this information for a long time. There was another email that was sent today that I saw where this information was asked for in the middle of April by the vice mayor. And we didn't get it until yesterday to be able to look at some of these things.
I still haven't got it.
And you still haven't gotten it. It's time to tighten up the belt on the government spending just a little bit. I don't see any reason why we can't find that $3.7 million to avoid a real estate tax increase of that amount on our citizens.
Ms. Donald, was you done?
Excuse me?
Were you done?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Farrar?
All right, so I knew this would be the talking point. Now, I'm not even saying I'm going to vote for this. Over the last two cycles, assessment cycles, we have already cut the tax rate and sent more dollars back into the citizens' pockets that have been ever done in the 21st century in Lynchburg, Virginia. It's already been done. This should be considered a correction, a plateau, another market term. 80 cents or lower is the lowest tax rate of any major city in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I mean, let that sink in. That's lower than Danville. That's not something we can market. I've outlined how I want to get us to 76. But because of councils over the last 25 years, our hands are a bit tied on the debt. So sure, if you want to talk about serious proposals to reduce the spending, I'm there. But I need serious proposals for us to hash out in a productive way. I have racked my brain, and we can't thank city staff enough, because they worked their tail off crunching these numbers, trying to make something happen. And I don't know, maybe it's because I treat them a little bit nicer. Maybe you guys have thought of that. But truly, we're so close. I don't want a tax hike on those I represent. I don't. But if we went to 80 right now, that's the lowest tax rate of any major city in this Commonwealth. We went down below equalization, and now we're leveling off. We need a serious, productive conversation. And I just wanted to submit that. We're very close.
Ms. Reed?
We're looking for $3 million. I know we're talking about operating, but we did just use $3 million of taxpayer money to help pay for a developer's road. So let's remember that. Secondly, can I ask y'all to pull up the slide that we didn't get to see last week on what the budget will look like at 76 without any of this? Because we haven't seen that. What the proposed budget would then look like at equalization.
So, we've prepared some reduction scenarios. The difficulty with the reduction scenarios is until we get direct, firm direction from council that you want to explore specific reduction scenarios, that's not a conversation we want to have publicly, because most of those reduction scenarios, the ones that meaningfully reduce spending, most of them involve staff, jobs. And the minute we start discussing specific programs and jobs for reduction, it does very bad things
Okay.
to the
Excuse me,
culture.
I just interrupt because it's important. Mitch, can you put up the slide that showed what was built into you had a slide that showed what everything, the value of everything that was in our budget.
I think it's slide 8, maybe?
This one.
This one.
So, if everybody wants to follow along, the bottom says 76 cents, and then you can see what's built into it all the way up to 89, or from 89 down. So we can just figure this out ourselves. You take out, if we go down from 89, you start to subtracting. So we take out 0.6 cents of it, we take out the elderly and disabled tax relief. We take out another 3 cents, you take out the city schools, you take out 2.8 cents, you take out the cost of living adjustment, and then you go down from there. Then you start taking out services. So just figure it out. If we don't do some type of something to offset it, then you guys can figure it out because you're smart. Something's gonna go. So you guys decide. We've already said, even with Mr. Feraldi's suggestion, we've already removed the expansion for the elderly and disabled tax relief, so that's gone. So that's already gone. So now we have 3 areas that it can come from. It'll be the raise for our teachers. It'll be the cost of living adjustment for our city employees. Or it'll be, or a combination of all that. And then it'll start being our city services, which will either be jobs and services or one or the other. So if we don't supplement it with some type of revenue, that's why the staff doesn't want to show it to you and start playing the game, not that you're doing anything wrong. But that's what we end up cutting if we don't supplement it somewhere. So yes, Mr. Missions is suggesting that we cut spending, but Ms. Witt has told us that things have moved around from line item to line item as well. So, and that's $3 billion. So that's only some of what's in there. So if we don't do what Mr. Feraldi suggested, we're still losing something, a big chunk of stuff that's in there. So that's a problem. Someone loses, someone big, because it's either our teachers, our employees of the city, or the services that everybody in our city loves to have. That's why they live in the city. And I'll tell you, as the mayor, I'm sure, I know Mayor Taylor knows, you get emails every day from people who love their services, who are going without them, or the services are missing, or they're not happy with them. People in the city love their services. So, and we've heard during the hearing from all of our people that are on fixed income about how important number one is. So that's what we're looking to lose if we don't supplement it somehow. And we're trying not to raise city taxes that directly impact our citizens. So the suggestion here was to do something that's not a tax within our city limits on our citizens, which is why I think it's a good idea. But now we're getting a, presentation on how horrible this suggested budget is and how we're presenting the highest tax increases of any budget ever, versus what is trying to be done is some type of, yes, compromise so that we don't hurt everyone impacted by the suggested budget, while also trying to help out our citizens. So, I don't know.
Ms. Timmer?
I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief point of clarification in regards to the Wigington development. The monies that we've discussed for the road are not for the private development or the private road. It is actually improvements to Wigington that were previously in the capital improvement plan 10 years ago. That is factually correct. In addition to that, and I have the floor. In addition to that, the developer proffered to improve roads that were over 1.5 miles away from the development, putting forth funds that were not just for adjacent road improvements, but actually down the road, again, that were in the capital improvement plan. And in the capital improvement plan, the rationale given for that project was due to increased traffic based on a development. So, I mean, I could go on and on with this with Greenview Drive, et cetera, but it's just important to note for the record that the finances that we are discussing for Wigington road improvements are not a gift to the developer. They are actually a response to a need that's been there for well over a decade, and leveraging private funding in order to make that happen. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Deemer?
Yeah, and I appreciate all the conversation and the civility that's transpired and how everybody's come to the table with ideas, both to deal with the spending issues and the taxing issues. And I just don't think we've had a whole lot of discussion about the spending or the borrowing. I think those are definitely things that impact us. And when it comes to Wigington, we were talking about it at annexation, fixing that road. That was part of the promise, so that goes back a whole lot longer than 5 or 10 years. We've been promising those folks a good road for a long, long time, and it's not for the developer. Let's just be clear. But I do want to make one point, because I think there is a philosophical thing. And I think we left out a tax that I numbered before. We got up to 6. And I left out the ambulance fee that's now on the table being discussed. To be clear and full confession, I didn't ask for the expanded elderly and disabled tax relief. I did hear from a lot of elderly when I went door to door, and they are on fixed incomes. But I'm not into playing favorites when it comes to tax relief. I want everybody to get tax relief. I don't want to say, okay, you get it, you don't. You get it, you don't. I want people who are paying real estate tax relief to get tax relief. I don't want to be making means testing or age testing or any other kind of testing. If you own property, I want it to be equal and across the board. And that gets to the philosophical question. I heard it said that we sent more money back to these people in the last few years. Let's be clear. What we did was we allowed them to keep their own money, okay? That money was in their pocket. They earned it. They went to their job. They did the work. They got the paycheck. It's in their bank. We just said, as a city, we're not going to go stick our hand in your wallet, in your purse, and grab more of it. That is not sending money back. That is letting them keep their earned money. The city did not earn that money. The citizens of Lynchburg did. I want it to be clear, those are the people I'm here to represent, and I want them not to be forgotten. I've been 100% on that from the beginning to the end. Don't forget who's paying all our bills. All our bills. You know, a certain number of us ran and said we want to lower taxes. And I'm looking at 7 things going up here. So we've got to ask ourselves, we got to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, is this what we told people when we went door to door? Because I'm going to try to stay true to what I said to my people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I do have one question first, then a statement after that. Ms. Witt, you had mentioned that we were going to be able to pay for new radios for the fire department, right?
Working on it.
And where's it look like that money is going to be coming from?
I'm working with the police chief to possibly savings in their budget.
Because you said fire in
Fire.
last week. So it's
It
coming
is
from
fire, I'm sorry, in the fire budget.
And I think
Police-
that's-
I'm sorry, the fire chief.
And that's the chief. And that's, was that like a $700,000
Correct.
purchase? So that's one department right there. We're getting close to the end of the year where we got enough money left over to spend $700,000 on radios, right? That's a good thing because we need the radios.
And part of that is also some of their vacancy savings.
And vacancy savings. So, just something I want to point out there. But when I look at this, we can go back and forth line item after line item, but I don't think that really gives the whole picture. The whole picture is, what I'm looking at from what you guys provided to me is non-personnel, no benefits, no overtime, no pay, that says hourly on it. I took hourly off on what I'm looking at now because I figured out I put hourly on there after I did it. No part-time, no, non-personnel. And I'm seeing that we spent $17 million in 2024. We're proposed at $24.5 million for 2026. And what I'm saying is inflation was 4.9%. So if we were to just do a 20% increase, on that, which is 3.7 million. So 20% increase, 4 times the rate of inflation on those non-personnel items, looking at it holistically. There's the money right there to equalize the tax rate, combined with some of these other revenue sources that Mr. Feraldi brought up and we've discussed, right? So that's where I'm at. I think we need to look at that. And one thing that I will say, that I've dug into and tried to learn a lot about is the impact of the CIP, and Mr. Feraldi's absolutely right. In order to not be in this position this year, we got to take a look at stuff that we don't need, because we don't need to borrow money for projects we don't need, because that's what puts us in the position, right? And I do believe we got to take a look at the CIP, and that's going to help us down the road. It's not going to help us for next year, but there are savings to be had if we tighten our belts on the non-personnel expenditures and really try to get it done. I know you guys can do it. I have full faith you can do it. The numbers don't lie.
Ms. Donna?
Just a quick clarification, my budgeteers are keeping me honest. I misspoke. I said software maintenance, it's actually software subscriptions were moved into the subscription line item. So I apologize, I misspoke.
So that would probably have been a zero
So
for this year.
it wasn't the maintenance. And some of the maintenance projects have been moved from the tech fund into the general fund because we didn't have the funds.
It looked like the tech fund was pretty low this year from what I saw.
Well, because one of the main funding streams for the technology fund has been the communications sales and use tax, which is decreasing year over year. So we haven't had as much funds to put there, where we pay for a lot of our large software replacements and used to do a lot of maintenance, but not anymore.
So, one question, is there a system out there that would make life easier for your department?
Oh, there's lots of great budget systems out there, but
Why have we never
I don't
done
have
it?
$500,000 to do that.
Why, is it $500,000 a year? Or is it half a million one
It's probably a
time?
$500,000 and then $30,000 or $40,000 a year.
After seeing what I've seen,
We
and
do
seeing what your staff has to go through with
a
that
lot
flash
manually.
drive and the amount of manual work that goes into this, I believe the cost savings from spending that $500,000 this year, this is just my thought, the one time would be incredible. I think it would pay for itself year over year on that, because after seeing what I've seen, you guys do an incredible amount of work manually, and I got to commend you for that, because it is,
We work very long hours to put that together.
And-
that book together.
and I feel like it's 2025, and you've been let down if we don't have you guys in the right system to make it easier to do your job, and probably more accurate.
Mr. Wilder.
And real briefly, I just think we continue to micromanage our staff. I have faith in our staff, and I don't think we should continue to micromanage that. I apologize for that. Secondly, if you think you get the same service last year that you're gonna get this year for the same amount of money, then somebody's living in a fantasy world. I'm sorry, I'm not talking about inflation, I'm just talking about in general. If you think you're gonna get the same amount of eggs as you got last year, then you're in la la land. Seriously, because it's not gonna happen. You said the same car, you talk about me, and the same car is not gonna happen. I'm just being realistic. And also, we as citizens in Lynchburg, we need to ask ourselves, what kind of city do you want to live in? What kind of place do you want to live in? A place with no service, where I'm gonna cut this back, I'm gonna cut this back. I don't want a park, I don't want a trail, I want a raggedy bridge that's gonna possibly collapse. And we always talk about school system, about why is there mold in this place? What happened? Was it neglect? No, it's because they didn't have the money to do it. Because they had to cut the budget here and cut the budget here. Sandusky was on a repair list, renovation list, rebuilt 20 years ago. Why wasn't it done? Because of money. That's why they have issues in the school. That's why the issues at Payne. That's the issues in other places. They just did not have the money. Why is the roof like that? Because they didn't have the money to repair that roof. That's why they had to keep pushing along, because this is more important. That was more important. So we have to ask ourselves, what kind of city do we want to live in? I want to live in a city that's prospering. I want to see it's growing. The population has increased over the past 20 years from about 60,000 to about 80,000 people. It costs more to operate a city with 80,000 people than it does cost of 20,000 people with more services. Wages have gone up. Wages not the same they were 20 years ago. So wages have gone up. We need to pay our staff what they are worth. They are worth an increase in wages, because if we want to keep them and keep the knowledge that we've been blessed with, we've got to be able to pay for that. So again, if you're thinking you'll get the same service as you got last year, this year, it's just not going to happen. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Ferrari?
Hey, Mechie, if you can go to the slide that incorporates the spending cuts that Greg outlined. I don't know which direction that one is. Yeah, that's okay.
From previous years, you mean?
Yes.
Is it the one with the red on it?
It is, it's got, yeah, that one too.
I voted for that budget. And based on that, I voted to, that argument, if you will, remove $12 million from proposed spending of the city. I have voted to cut spending a lot. Now, I ask council, we're in a position where we need to find the other obligations we've made, commitments we've made, and promises we made. I say this with a smile, but Dr. Wilder is right. Yeah, Sandusky wasn't done because of money. I've come across a new phrase, and I've started to adopt it on my own. It's not a problem of money, it's a lack of prioritization. If it's not a priority, you're not going to put your time or resources, treasure, effort towards it. Regardless, it hasn't happened. We have a chance to do it now. Through the work with city staff and some stakeholders who even gave me the idea, I've come across a way to get us within $3.7 million. And I'm looking at 3 no's right now, one of which I know exactly why he's a no. Quite frankly, I want to solve this problem. I don't think there's a desire to solve this problem by all 7 of us. In fact, Mr. Mayor, I think this is solely related to a Republican primary next year. And actually, there's a desire of members of this council for it not to be equalization, so that there could be a vote to use against some of the colleagues on this very dais a year from now. No, Mr. Mayor, there is nothing wrong with what I'm saying. This is what I believe
No, it's a point
to
of
be
order.
fact, and you don't have to recognize that point of order one bit. That's where I'm coming from.
Point of
I
order.
made a good faith effort, Mr. Mayor, to bring this as close as possible in a manner that honors what I campaigned for.
Point of order.
We need all 7 of us.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor,
to
point of order.
find out-
Okay, but recognize the point of order.
Marty, I didn't interrupt you once all day.
What is the point of order?
What, Councilman Missions, what's the point of order?
Getting a little too political,
Really?
I think, absolutely.
So I don't know if that would fit necessarily under the rules of procedure. Remember, it's not about like or dislike, from
It was
what,
about like or dislike with facts last week. So I'm just saying, it's getting a little, to start making accusations about primaries and this and that and elections and
Point of order.
campaigning, inappropriate.
There it is.
That's not what
That's
we're
in
here
our
to do.
rules.
Can I
This is
at least
campaign.
finish where I was coming from?
Yeah, this is
Finish your statement.
campaigning.
I mean,
There's
finish.
nothing in our rules of procedure about what I'm talking about. 2.5 years ago, I looked folks who used to sit here dead in the eyes and said, there's an effort to lower the real estate rate. If you guys don't get along with it, you're going to pay for it. The vice mayor then at the time turned to me and said, is that a threat? I said, no, it's a political promise. You're going to lose your seat. Look where we are. If you don't like what I'm saying, that's okay. What I'm trying to formulate here, Mr. Mayor, and the very point of orders prove where I'm coming from. They want to distract away from us having meaningful dialogue, so it just delays, and they can turn around and vote no. So what I'm asking is if we can have what they're asking for. They're going to need a public hearing. Okay? Sure. If we want to even pursue this path, because we found a way to get within $3.7 million, we need to have those public hearings on the second meeting of this month.
Okay.
That needs to happen. But then, I've done my work insofar as trying to build compromise, bring us together in a civil way. If you want to prove me wrong about that accusation, about what your actual intent is, work with me and find a way in a reasonable way that all 7 of us, yes, can get easily behind and not these silly that's attention grabbing. That's all it is. It's campaign fodder. All I'm asking. Oh, give me a break, Marty. I'm asking you to work with me. I don't believe you do, because you want to vote against anything that has come up here, so you're theoretically safe next year. I want you to prove me wrong with that and help us find $3.7 million so we can all put this to bed. If you
Point of
don't,
order.
I just
If-
did.
Point of order.
What is your point of order?
Speculating about people's intent or what they may or may not be motivated by, and trying to get in people's heads about what they may or may not do is completely out of order. We need to talk about the issues, and when we start addressing each other and putting words in people's mouths and putting thoughts in people's heads and trying to play mind police with what people may or may not be thinking.
Really, right now?
That's not the purpose of the work session.
Okay, order.
Let's stick to the purpose of the work
the
session.
purpose of the work session, Vice Mayor, is for us to work together. And I'm saying, I
Don't try to put
don't
words in our mouths.
I don't believe y'all. Prove me wrong.
Not our
Prove me
job to
wrong.
make you believe us. It's not our job to make you believe it's not your
It's
responsibility.
almost
to
6
do.
o'clock.
I understand.
Unbelievable.
Make it brief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Unbelievable.
I've done work. There's money that can be cut from non-personnel spending, period, to make up that difference for the 3.7 million. I truly believe it. And honestly, hearing what I'm hearing now about other systems, I think that if we were to set some of those one-time funds that we have that are going to some other projects aside to invest in the proper software and tools for our finance department to be able to work efficiently and give us information in real time and more accuracy and all of those things, I'm sure it's probably would make your life way easier. I believe that that would yield even more opportunities to look at cost savings in the years to come because the data would be more real time. I truly believe that. So what I'm saying is we can do this. There are non-personnel costs in the budget that are way higher than what we spent in 2024 at a rate almost 10 times the amount of inflation, right? And if we were just to go back and tighten the belts a little bit and take a look, I'm certain that they could get it done. And this isn't about delaying anything. I'm not going to support anything other than an equalization or better on the real estate tax. I'm going to be loud and clear on that. I said earlier, I'm open to these other proposals. I would like to have the public hearing. I am all for the public hearings that we need to do. So,
In order to get this public hearing on the agenda within 7 days, with Mr. Ferrari's idea, I suggest we take a vote. Yes, ma'am.
We would need to suspend the rules of procedure.
No,
Right?
do it by consensus, see if that's where we want to go, and that's what you need.
Yes.
Sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
I do have one question before we do that. There were multiple scenarios up here. And I think it was said that we got to do a public hearing if we do any increases. Is there any reason, because of the timeline where we are now, in any of these proposals that staff brought before us, that it might not be a bad idea to maybe put something on there about the meals tax or something else, if that was something we were to have to look at?
I think we would recommend
Just advertising
adding
for something?
advertising for all the consumption taxes, just to leave all of council's options open.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
And we don't have to set the exact rate, though?
You do. If I was to recommend something, you should advertise your highest possible rate. And then from there, if you want to work down, you can do that. Or alternatively, do an individual ordinance and an individual advertisement for each rate.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you put up the slide scenario 2, please? Mayor Taylor, I would like to get your thoughts on the different scenarios, please.
.82.
So that would be increasing the meals tax by 0.5%.
Yes.
And then what was the one before that? So that's 0.82 without increasing the meals tax.
Yes.
Modified one.
So modified 1.
And then what's the next one?
The differences are, modified 1 has no adjustment to meals tax and higher adjustments to lodging. Modified 2 has a small adjustment to meals tax and smaller adjustments to lodging.
So that one's a 0.5% on meals.
Yeah.
Is there another?
I mean, you could do a million scenarios, but we just wanted to give council an opportunity to have a conversation.
Yes.
So we'd have to put one of those on the announcement from what Mr. Friedman said. So which one do you think is the better scenario? Because we have to put the rates.
to leave council's options open, it probably makes the most sense to include a up to 1% increase in meals tax and an up to 12.5 and 10 on lodging. That way, you're not shutting out any of the potential scenarios.
That'd be the rate.
What's the penny on the meals tax?
3.2 million?
3.2 million.
For what it's worth, I don't like the idea of going up on meals at home.
No, I don't either.
If that helps.
That would be 8 if we do that.
So go back to the other one
So
again.
back to .8.
No, it'd be 7.5
Be 7.5.
is what it would be, 6.5 to 7.5.
8 different tax increases.
Oh.
So at the .82, what did that do?
I'm sorry.
.82?
So that's a 80.8 cent real estate tax rate
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
If we use Mr. Feraldi's, Councilman Feraldi's plan for lodging tax at 12.5% and $10 on the room night tax and a real estate tax rate of 80.8 cents, then that would fund all of the operating budget as it was proposed.
That's where I'm at.
I think,
So we have just a public hearing on the lodging tax.
And ambulance?
In ambulance.
Yeah, if you all are able to agree to advertise a specific rate, that's even better, to know what direction we're going.
So there's not gonna be consensus for me unless we put on the table what staff suggested. I think that it's important to keep our options open. So,
then we'll have to I'm gonna make a motion to suspend our rules of procedure and then do a vote.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yes.
In lieu of the vote, maybe do an informal poll, just to see where everyone sits. If it's to be to advertise on the 12.5%, 6.5% on meals, and $10. Maybe that might be the better way to do it.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question? Just,
Yes.
why specifically wouldn't the interest be to do what staff proposed, where it gives the upper threshold of potential for us to play with? Is there a reason that I don't understand why we wouldn't want to?
I'll answer the question, but I just don't want to be point of order to you. For me,
Yeah,
it's
just
because
help.
I don't trust what's going to be said in social media and the public about what the true intentions are about what we're doing.
You have to be specific. So we could, that's why I suggested if you want to do a high rate, advertise it there and work down.
Well, I would,
Saying up to 12%, I don't think you'd be able to do because it's not specific as to what the actual increase is.
So
in all fairness, Mr. Feraldi, I would be included in that because I would be offering my voice of consent to exploring those options, since it would be consensus. So I mean, that may be your concern. I'm open to the tariff approach on various things. I just think with what staff is suggesting, if we're going to have a public hearing in the timeline that we're dealing with, it's just best to keep all of the options on the table and to have the flexibility with that as we have these discussions, since we are having this discussion. So, I don't know why that wouldn't be.
We're not interested in raising the meals tax, that's why. This is about the lodging tax. That's been the whole proposal the whole time. So we're not gonna open the door to increasing a meals tax that would affect all of our families, because that will be the social media sell and rumor, and we're not gonna put that out there, because we're not gonna even remotely crack a door that makes people think we're increasing a tax on our citizens, which is not what we're doing. That's why, because we're only looking at increasing the fee and the tax on the lodging to help supplement the revenue that we need to try to bring down the real estate rate in the best way possible. So that's why we don't want to That's why we're respectfully not wanting to do what staff is suggesting.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
So the desire is to not raise taxes on our local citizens and keep this in a
Not
tariff model.
increase the meals
Yes,
tax.
yes. That's what it is.
Okay, I'm just repeating what I'm hearing.
That's what
So
it
the
is.
desire is to not raise taxes on our local
Desire is not
citizens.
to raise the meals tax. I know where you're going with this, so don't try to trap me here. I understand that we're going to have to increase some of the, that the assessment is causing some of the costs to go up. However, what we're trying to do is find a compromise here because of that by increasing revenue through the lodging and room fees, but we are not wanting to increase something else in the consumption taxes, so we don't want to open the door for meals. All we're trying to do is, in this hearing, increase the lodging and room fees so that we can bring down the real estate tax as much as possible. You understand where I'm going here?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. The point's not to corner, but to repeat rationale. Because if that's your rationale behind meals tax, that's my rationale behind the real estate rate.
Yes,
And
and this
so-
is a compromise to try to, again, pull levers. I'm not going to debate with you. I'm not going to debate with you. I've made my statement as to
Point
why
of
I
order.
don't want,
Point
I
of order.
don't want the
You guys
meals.
are good.
Point of order.
She
Go.
can finish. She can finish, and
I
I
don't
still have
want
the
the
floor.
meals, or we don't want the meals to be on the public hearing, because that was not part of the proposal. I've explained that. I'm not going to go back and forth with you anymore.
I have, thank you. I still have the floor. I appreciate that. Again, my point is that when there is rationale in one area, I want to look at how that rationale is applying in other areas. So earlier, there were statements made as to my motivations when it comes to the real estate tax rate. Okay, because you said 3. And so I appreciate that, because I do not think that it is our place, and again, this is also why I'm going to oppose going into closed session for point number 8 in a minute. But it's not our place to assume each other's motivations in the actions that we're taking or the rationale that we're bringing to the table. And so it's important to be able to have those points of clarification. And my point of clarification when it comes to equalization is, with inflation, people are hurting. And I get that that impacts the city too, but a lot of the time inflation becomes a hidden tax for government, and the government receives more finances because of it. I understand that's not the same at the city level that it is at the national level and how that applies. But when we look at equalization, we're still looking at a revenue increase that is coming into the city. And you pair that then with new revenue opportunities and tightening up our priorities, and this is a doable thing. And so I believe it is very important that we not raise taxes on our local citizens. And I'm open to the tariff model to some degree of that. And I appreciate Ms. Reed's rationale with that when it comes to the meals tax. So I'd be happy to offer my consent to simply the lodging and the lodging room costs, because again, I agree with that rationale, that we do not want to raise taxes on our local citizens, especially in this turbulent economy.
Okay, with that, for time's sake,
So it sounds like what we're going to advertise is the 12.5% and $10 on the lodging.
on logic.
There's no consensus on that. So that's the point that I was getting at. You're asking for consensus for that. You're not getting consensus. I made it loud and clear. I will give consensus with staff's recommendation so that we're not backed into a corner, because logically that makes the most sense, right?
Point of order.
It's that simple.
Point of order. Mr. Attorney,
Yes, sir.
for us to advertise something in a newspaper without actually taking a vote, is that something we can even do?
Council can operate by consensus.
So we're not seeking a vote, but I think staff needs guidance as to what to put in the paper. So the reason I had suggested you all advertise the higher rate is you're not bound
Okay.
to adopt the
Yep.
rate that you advertise.
So you're
You
saying
can
that we
work that.
can put advertisements in the paper with no action by council?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're looking for direction on the
I mean,
budget.
official action, a vote, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
no, if you're just directing to advertise and to consider the adoption of an ordinance, you're not
Consider.
making any decision to change a tax.
How are we directing if we're not voting on a motion?
You're you know, we're in a work session, we're looking for,
Okay,
For
I just want to
guidance.
understand, I've never seen, this seems unprecedented in my mind, that we would put something in public newspaper without actually taking an official action as,
oh, we do it all the time. I mean, we have to give advertisements on statutory
and every time we've
matters.
taken a vote,
No.
no? Okay. I'll take you at your word.
So I guess the question is, can staff advertise without direction, based on what their recommendation is?
So you were asking for a poll rather than consensus?
Yeah, just to see where you all sit. It sounds like that there is a majority agreement for staff to pursue the 12.5% and the 10 on the lodging.
10%.
I mean, if that's not the case, now's
You
the
just have
time
to
to
do a
speak
poll.
up.
Let's go around and ask everybody, so by majority would be a poll.
Chris, do you agree? Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Wilder?
Yes.
I'm like them, but I would love to know what I'm agreeing to. Can you restate? Because normally we'd have a motion, and you would be asked to restate that motion before we vote on the motion. But we're doing something completely
What you're
weird here.
agreeing to is to publicly announce that there will be a 12.5% lodging fee tax, tariffs, I like that word, tariffs, on people that come through town and rent room, okay? And a lodging room, $10 fee. That's what you're voting.
Right.
And you're not gonna increase taxes on the citizens, because this fee is gonna take care of it.
So it's just those two things.
Those
That's all.
two things.
Public hearing, not adopting a rate.
Right.
That's right.
To put out the public hearing on those two.
Yes,
items.
yes.
I'll support it.
You'll support it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Timmer?
Are we changing?
Are you skipping me?
I mean, I'm happy to voice where I'm at with it. I don't have.
Mr. Reed, Mr. Mitchell?
It's missions, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Missions.
Just to be clear, you just said that we're doing this to make sure that there's no increase, but there's actually a $3.7 million increase on our citizens with this proposal, right? So just to be factual about that. And as I said, I support what staff recommended on this, just to keep our options open and with the hearing advertisements. That's all I got.
So no. Am I right?
So we publish it, right?
I've got 4 for just lodging tax, so we're gonna publish just lodging tax.
And the fee.
And the fee, yeah, it's all,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I got closed section items. What time is it?
6:25, we got a meeting in 35 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, Leville Road has a time component to it. So if there's,
Motion to adjourn is a privileged motion.
excuse me,
It's not able to be recognized in a work session. There are only 2 motions able to be recognized in a work session.
Okay.
Can we deal with the closed sessions after city council, regular?
I'm gonna make us all try to motion to adjourn before we do it.
Leesville Road.
So it sounds like, Mayor, it sounds like you have to make a ruling on the motion. So if no motions under the rules or procedure permitted, you can make the choice to either rule it out of order and proceed on, or to rule it in order to be considered.
The motion to adjourn.
I'm gonna move that that's out of order, and we're gonna continue.
So Lisa already said it has a timeline?
I'd ask staff to come forward because it does have a timeline to avoid, like we said, having you vote the same evening on an opportunity, and Rachel will be quick.
My best. Thank you. There is a advertisement, just like you were just discussing, with a public hearing for a rezoning that has been set for your next meeting. So if we did not bib it and proceed with that public hearing, that would alter their schedule. So I appreciate you, council. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members. The purpose of this petition is to rezone approximately 4.6 acres from R1 to R4C conditional to allow the construction of 54 townhomes located at 665, 666, and 669 Leesville Road. Planning Commission recommended denial of this petition at their meeting on April 9th. This item will return at your next meeting for council action. Next slide. The city's future land use map recommends medium-density residential for majority of the property where the townhomes will be located, and a small portion adjoining Burton Creek recommended for conservation use. These properties were annexed into the city in 1976, and the existing R1 zoning was established in 1978. If the petitions are approved, next slide, the property would be developed as a 54-unit townhome development with associated parking. An example photo of what the petitioner would like to construct is included on this slide. The voluntarily submitted proffers are also shown here, stating that the site would be developed in substantial compliance with the layout shown and that parking would exceed the number of townhome units. As I mentioned, Planning Commission recommended denial of this petition last month, citing concerns over traffic and the desire to maintain single-family zoning. And this item will return back to you at your next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there,
Mayor, I'll jump into the next item really quick. This was the rules of
she had
procedure.
questions.
Oh, you had a question?
Just really quickly, thank you. How many projects are currently taking place on Leesville, and where are they at in their timelines of?
So in addition to this one, two come to mind. There's one that has graded and is getting ready to begin, they're nearing the site plan approval phase. So they have graded and are getting ready to construct townhomes. I'm sorry, I don't have the number. I want to say it's 50-some. Just up the block, I think that's 715 Leesville Road. And then there is another at 750 Leesville Road near the intersection, I don't know if that's Compton Way or Simon's Run, that was in front of council a couple of months ago. So those are the two at top of mind, but I
Okay,
I
could
can't
you just
promise
shoot us an
that's all of
email
them.
this,
Okay.
this week? Yeah,
There's 5 things.
because
Okay.
I know that there are a number underway, and I just want to be mindful of that, because, I mean, it was a unanimous
That's right, Misty Mountain and, yeah.
denial
Oh.
for this petition, and that's unusual when it comes to townhomes especially. And so I just want to be, I want to understand that better with the number of developments that are currently on
Okay,
Leesville. Thank
we'll
you.
get you that.
Mr. Mission?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So can we go back to the slide that shows like the overall, that one, back one more? All right, so that's North Street across the road. So we're looking at these 3 lots right here that back up to Bentley Grove. And then beside, just to make sure I'm orienting myself right, is that Burton Creek on the bottom there?
I believe that is Burton Creek Apartments.
Okay. What, is there a reason this is R4C and not something less intensive?
So you sometimes see townhomes come to you as R3 with a conditional use permit. That's not the case in this scenario because of the density that R3 allows. That will let you go up to 10.89 dwelling units per acre. R4 allows up to 21.78, although that's not the density they would be achieving since they have proffered the concept plan. This plan shows 54 units on 4.6 acres. You lose a little bit of acreage when they dedicate right-of-way for the taper for the entrance, and also you lose a little bit because part of it's in the floodplain. So the real total acreage, when it's all said and done, is 4.244, and that equates to 12.7 units per acre, which exceeds the 10.89 in R3.
So that's why they're doing the R4.
So they had to go R4.
Could they have gotten that with an R3 and a CUP?
No,
No?
not with that density.
Not with that density?
Yeah, they'd
Okay.
have to decrease the number of units.
And have they had any, I'm looking to see the, any neighborhood feedback from the meetings, anything like that?
There were no speakers present at the planning commission meeting. There was one person who called in to say that they were opposed, left a voicemail.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you for your time.
Next item. This item will be Lynchburg City Council Rules and Procedure Amendments. Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, sir. Just a quick point of clarification on the previous franchises you all had reviewed. I did double check and make sure that that language was in there. I'd mentioned about the assignment being void, that's probably not a good way to word it, but it would be a breach if they were to do an assignment like that. But either way, that language is there in both of them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, council members. These two amendments that are before you tonight were ones, from what I understand, were fairly exigent to get on there as it relates to speakers and interacting with council members and council members interacting with speakers. Just in a very general summary, the mayor had requested an amendment to to prohibit speakers from approaching the dais during the public comment section of meetings, but there is a process to allow the clerk of council to receive items that speakers need to present to council. The vice mayor had requested an amendment to essentially say, except by a consent of a majority of council members present, council members would not be permitted to leave the dais for the sole purpose, really, of interacting with speakers during the public comment section or the general public. But any other purposes to leave the dais obviously would be okay. So those are the two that are coming up this evening, and that's what I've got on those.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ferrari.
I think this needs to be completely redone.
Okay.
It's just not appropriate at all. This council was sent through the rigmarole because Councilman Helgeson and Ms. Jens continued to bring up motions on the fly without looping anybody else in and just using the political fodder of it. That's what this was intended to stop. And so far as getting up, yeah, if you want to. If I want to talk to somebody, I'm still going to do it anyway. I mean, so it's a dumb rule. You're going to prevent me from talking to my constituents? That's the message you want to send? It's pretty stupid. Yeah. All of the changes, I'm a no.
So just for clarification, there's only two that are on here this evening, one of which is essentially to keep individuals from approaching the dais.
Then what am I reading about all the other things that are being proposed in that email that you sent? Forgive me.
That is for July.
That's for July.
Yes, so these two were ones that were fairly exigent that I know the mayor and vice mayor had wanted to address today and tonight. So it's only two of them. It's an amendment to number 12 that talks about individuals approaching the dais during public comment, and the other one is about council members leaving the dais to interact with speakers in public.
Yeah, so during public hearing, they could come up.
That's correct.
I mean, do we see, I've made my point.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is just specifically number 12. So we got two items in the agenda, right, that were provided. So number 12 is just specifically looking at preventing us from leaving the dais to specifically interact with the public.
That's number 15, but yes.
No, I think 12 says, except by consent of majority, council members are not permitted to leave the council's dais during public comment. So that's number 12.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it is number 12.
So, for the purpose of interacting with speakers or members of the general public, is that, where does that apply? Does that apply just in council chambers? If I had to slip out the backside door to talk to somebody, maybe my wife perhaps, right? Like, am I not allowed to do that based on this rule?
I don't think so. I think really the intent of this rule, certainly the vice mayor, could speak to what he was getting at, but really the intent is to ensure that members are staying on the dais to listen to speakers and the public versus going down and talk to them. I think if you had a situation where you had a family member and you needed to speak with them, or if you needed to go to the restroom, I would hope you wouldn't get hit with a point of order. you
I
know,
would hope
for-
so, I would hope so too.
doing that,
Or if you had,
but-
you know, yeah, I'm just kind of, you know, it's interesting to me that it's not
So you're proposing.
not really a fan of
friendly
this.
amendment of saying in the chamber?
Maybe,
what you're proposing?
but I mean, I'm personally, I'm just not really a fan of it altogether. I just, you know, I don't think that, I don't think we need to police the ability for us to move about. I do think that there's probably some flexibility that the mayor has already on his own to consider something that may be disruptive, that doesn't necessarily require a rule of procedure to do it, right? Do you see that there might be some sort of power there already that the presiding officer has to kind of, if something appears to be disruptive in the chambers, that one of us do?
Oh, yeah, I mean, if it's disruptive, yes, you know, but, you know, and again, Vice Mayor, if you want to jump in to speak to it, please
Yeah, the
do.
intent was just to make sure that there's kind of a wall of separation there to keep decorum and public order. And that if we're gonna tell citizens, which is where it started, that they can't approach the dais, okay? Then I think as a courtesy, we need to make sure we're also not likewise going out into the crowd and doing things, interacting with people in the chamber in the middle of the meeting. So it's just, you stay on your side of the fence, our side. Our job here is to listen to people, but not necessarily one person privately in the middle of the chamber. We're supposed to stay up on the dais and listen to everybody speaking. And if they have something they want to approach and give us, they pass it off to the clerk. You know, just keeps everybody in their lane is what we were hoping.
And that takes me to number 15, you know. I have a little bit of an issue with that, and I'll show you why I've got an issue with that. The issue that I have with that is right here, right? So, you know, when you've got situations where somebody from the public, this was actually during a recognition, and I think I know it says public comment, but where does it go next, right? I know the little girl that this came from. And, you know, when we're talking about putting a wall up to prevent the public from giving us something during public comment, I don't want a wall, is kind of what I'm saying. If somebody gets disruptive, if somebody gets out of order, shut them down. That's what you have the power to do. I don't think we need a new rule to do that, because I think about the things that could be the unintended consequences of something like that, right? That's just my take on it. I'd like to hear others' feedback on it, and I totally understand what you're saying about us being there to listen. That's absolutely what we should do. And I think that overall, if you were to look at attendance of the people here that have been elected, it's very good. And I think that our people, that our members are listening to our citizens. I just don't know that these additional rules really are necessary, if
You
that
know,
makes sense.
I got a Boy Scout troop coming in today, and they will be allowed to come through the barrier, okay? It's in place to stop unruly people from approaching council people. And it's gonna stay there. I'll put it there. For that reason.
I have a question for the attorney.
Yeah, I got a question on that too.
Is there anything that would have stopped that little girl from presenting that going to us if we, as the council, had quickly made a motion to allow her to approach?
Yeah, of course they
Or
could
the Boy
approach.
Scouts or whatever.
Yeah.
We can let them up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting because we got other meeting downstairs.
Downtown and
All
downstairs.
right, meeting's adjourned.